Hey everybody, Tom Bullington here again with Coldwell Banker Realty. Wanted to touch base again on something that bears repeating. It's the changes in the real estate forms and real estate laws that are effective here at the end of this week. And I wanted to make sure everyone is kind of clear because there's a lot of confusion, even among realtors, even among brokers out there and real estate companies. Now, this is a national change. This was brought by a lawsuit that was brought by a number of different companies and individuals last year, where they felt like they were being misrepresented by some particular realtors and some companies that are out there, that they were being misrepresented and didn't understand exactly how the commission structure worked. So this is an attempt that was accepted by the courts. This is an attempt to try to clarify commissions for people that are both buyers and sellers um, out there in the housing market. So I actually think there's some good changes that are going to be brought about by this. I think it is something where um, if there's any confusion at all among buyers and sellers, that's a bad thing. We need to eliminate any confusion at all. So this is a big change, though. This is the first major change like this in decades. So we're going to walk you through today exactly kind of what's happening. So first of all, if you're a buyer, if you're Joe Smith and you'd like to see 123 Main Street, okay. I'm not even going to deal with the way it is now because by the time a lot of you see this video, it's going to be moot. So we're going to look at August 15th onward, 2024. So if you're seeing this in the future, we're just going to talk about the way it is now. So what's happening is if Joe wants to see a house, he's going to call me and say, Tom, I would like to see this house on 123 Main Street. I'd say, Joe, that's great. I need you to sign a form that says I am um, authorized to show you this home, and we're going to enter into an agreement. It could be just for a day, or it could be a permanent agreement that's longer. If this person wants to hire me as an agent, we could make the contract for that length of time, or we could just make it for a day or for just that particular house that Joe wants to see. But he or she, the prospective buyer, needs to be able to sign a form that says, I am working with Tom as an agent. He is my realtor. I am under contract with him to show this house. I may not buy it. I may just want to look at it because I'm curious. But everyone that I show a home to from now on has to sign something that says, I am authorizing you, Tom, to show me this house. And if I end up buying it, most importantly, if I end up buying it, you get a commission out of it. Okay. So that's kind of the important thing. We were, I think, confusing people that would just go and look at a number of homes, off of Zillow or off of Redfin or coldwellbanker.com or whatever it might be. And then we would never see them again. And then down the road, they might buy that house and we would not be compensated for actually showing them the home. First of all, that's wrong. It's not good for the agent, but it's also not good for the buyer because the buyer doesn't know better. So this clarifies that relationship. So if Joe just wants to see this one house, we're going to sign a very temporary agreement. But if Joe comes back in 2 weeks and wants to buy that house, I'm compensated for it because I've shown the house to Joe. So if that makes sense. The other thing that I think is the most important and probably the most critical change, the biggest change in all of this is on behalf of the seller. So right now I have a couple listings here in Hastings. I have a listing up in St. Paul, and they've all sold. Okay, which is a good thing. Moving forward, though, and I'm saying this, I'm recording this on August 14th, so it's before the big day changes. So now moving forward, when I meet with a seller, when I meet with someone who's a prospective seller, I'm going to have to talk with the seller and say, listen, seller, here is my commission for listing this house. This is what I expect you to pay me. What percentage you're going to pay me to in order to sell this home for you on the market. List it on the MLS, take all the photography, do all of the marketing, put the signs in the yard, et cetera, et cetera. If there's anything that I'm going to be paying for, I'm going to pay for it out of my commission that I'm getting from the seller. So let's just say it's 3%. Okay. So if it's 3%, the seller knows going in to that relationship that they are going to pay me 3% as the broker, as the real estate agent. Now, moving forward, what's happening is we are not authorized as agents to present a possible commission or a rate that we would be paying, the seller would be paying the buyer's agent. So an agent brings a buyer to the home. He or she is not going to know officially, according to the MLS or anywhere else in writing, they're not going to know what their compensation is going to be from the seller. Okay. So what's going to happen now is the seller is not going to present that up front. So all they know is they're going to present a 3% commission to their listing agent. We are not advertising. We are not authorized by law to present to the buyer's agent what they're going to be compensated. What's more than likely going to happen here is that the buyer's agent, when they make an offer for the home that the seller is selling, the buyer's agent is going to include the proposed compensation for that home as part of the offer that's going over to the seller. So the seller is at 3% for me, for the listing agent, but the seller is going to receive an offer that's not only going to have an offer for the price of the home, let's just say $500,000 for sake of argument. The offer comes in, that's $500,000 plus we would like 2.7%, which has kind of been the going rate. 2.7% of the seller's money is going to go back to the buyer's agent. Okay. So rather than having the seller present that up front, the buyer's agent is going to have to present that as part of the offer. That's more than likely how these things are going to shake out. The seller then in turn can say, listen, we'll give you 2.5%, or we'll give you 2%. Buyer's agent. Going back to the buyer, what are they going to say? Are they going to say, no, we want our agent to get 2.7? It might disadvantage the buyer's agent because the buyer gets the house. Do they necessarily care what the buyer's agent gets? Maybe. Of course, the buyer's agent wants to get the 2.7, which is kind of the standard industry, depending on the market. For sake of argument here, it's typically about 2.7%. Some greater Minnesota cities outside of the metro area, south of Hastings, for example, like Red Wing, some of the commissions that had been given to buyers agents were around like 2.4, 2.5, or even like 2.3 if you get into greater Minnesota outside of the Twin Cities area. If you get into larger metropolitan areas like Rochester or Duluth, typically, or Minneapolis, St. Paul, obviously it's 2.7. It's typical. But now all of that's going to be negotiated as part of the offer, which is a complete change. That is disgruntling some people, but it doesn't really matter. Gruntled or not, disgruntled or not, it doesn't matter. This is the way it is now. So agents that are out there grumbling about it, oh well, this is the way it is, guys. So that's kind of what's happening. So if you're a buyer, you're going to be presenting an offer to the listing agent, to the sellers, requesting a commission for your agent. Interesting. Um, so I think it's going to help the seller more than it's going to help the buyer's agent. It may not affect the buyer, but it's going to definitely affect the buyer's agent. So I think the people that are going to be um, disadvantaged, let me just put it that way, disadvantaged in this change are going to be the buyer's agents. Um, Similarly, the buyer's agent, it's a little bit more of a pain now to have a buyer, prospective buyer, go out and have to sign a piece of paper saying, yep, here's all the, and it's a detailed thing. It's like a 2-page, um, it's this. So it's a buyer touring agreement. And there's different formats of this, but this is from the St. Paul area realtors that sent this to me yesterday. Um, Very interesting. So now commissions are a lot more negotiable. Plus, you basically have a form that you have to fill out before you show a home. There's also another form out there which has been part of the showing process called agency, which if you are upon first discussion of any pricing or any price negotiations or anything, you have to present a agency form to a buyer to demonstrate. It's just a disclosure, but basically you just have to say, okay, here are the different roles of buyers, sellers, agents, etc. And that's called agency. So if you're ever out there and you're talking with a realtor and they have not given, and they're talking with a realtor specifically about pricing of a home, and they have not given you a form called agency disclosure, ask them for it, because that is a no-no. You have to give agency forms to people that you're discussing pricing of real estate with in Minnesota. The other forms, as far as the showing request, that as well as the commissions, that's a national thing. So if you're ever in another state or you're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, where I'm licensed, and an agent does not give you a form to fill out or does not have you sign a form to show a home, ask for it, because that they have to. Um, and I would just request it. You don't necessarily have to call the Department of Commerce on the person, because we're still in kind of early days of this, but it's definitely something that they have to do by law, and it's a national deal. Anyway, the National Association of Realtors agreed to these conditions, and all of the state associations of realtors and the local groups like Minneapolis or St. Paul has their own, Rochester, et cetera, Duluth. Um, they have all agreed to this. And the brokers like Coldwell Banker, they have all agreed to this. So it's a big change. I don't think it's really going to be, at the end of the day, after people get used to it, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but it's just something to kind of be aware of, and something that I wanted to talk about relatively at length today because it is a huge thing. If you have any questions or just want to discuss it, you don't have to hire me to do anything. I'll just give you free advice on this. If you're a new agent and just want to talk about this as well, and you happen to be seeing this video, let's just talk about it, because it's very interesting to me how this is all going to shake out. It's going to scare some agents off. Maybe some buyers agents are going to be scared off of this. They aren't going to make as much money, possibly. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think everything's going to shake out just fine for everyone concerned. So change is hard. Human beings don't like change, but I think this is a relatively good change that's, at the end of the day, going to be relatively minor. So if you have any questions about real estate or would like to see a home, and I will ask you to fill out a form. By law, I have to, as we know, again, it's Tom Bullington, Coldwell Banker Realty. I specialize here in Hastings area, but I am licensed in both Minnesota and Wisconsin. I just sold a house up in St. Paul. I've been out in greater Minnesota. I've been in Wisconsin, Western Wisconsin specifically. Please feel free to give me a call anytime. Even if you're not in the market right now, I just want to talk about strategy for next year, the year after. You're going to retire in 3 years. You just want to talk about real estate. Let's just have that discussion and we'll stay in touch. 651-402-6356 on the web at tombullingtonhomes.com. Again, with Coldwell Banker. Happy to help you out. Happy to answer any questions you might have about all these changes. And we will see you on the next video. Take care.